Is everybody ready? I should say, I'm ready to learn with you today and have some fun along the way. Ready, set, go! Today we're going to talk about presidents. Do you know what a president is? You're going to know when today's over. What you're going to need for today is you're going to need some dark paper. It can be blue, it can be any color you want, and some white paper, because we're going to do some things with those. We're going to make a president today. You're also going to need a penny, and on this penny, there's a kind of hard to see, there's a picture of a president. I'm going to show you on this paper what it looks like. You can see it a little better on here. Can you see that president? He's on two kinds of money, a penny and a $5 bill. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to use a penny to help us make our president today, all right? And of course, you're going to need your school tools. You'll need some markers and some glue and crayons. You're going to need those things too. We always need our school tools with our glue and our markers and our pencils and our crayons and our watercolors in case we paint, and some glue and tape. We always need those things, and scissors. Today, we're going to make a president, all right? Now, let's talk about what a president even is. A president is somebody who helps to run a country. All right? Now, sometimes people don't have a president. They have a king or a queen, and they help make the rules to keep us safe. Sometimes there's something called a prime minister or somebody that helps us make the rules, because if we all just did our own thing, would we be safe? Sometimes if everybody just went driving down the road and there was no rules, would the cars all crash? That wouldn't be very good, would it? So we need somebody to help us make rules to keep us safe. Now, we're going to talk about the president that is in the United States of America, because that president, they have a special day called President's Day, and it happens in February, and it honors two presidents and then all the other presidents. When the country very first started, they had a first president. Now let's talk about what the first president did long ago, because it's different than what presidents do now. Long ago, presidents rode in carriages, and they were pulled by horses. They had a driver, and they would sit right inside of the carriage. And that's how they would go places. Do you know how presidents and rulers go now? They go in a great big jet. Can you see that great big airplane right there? That airplane in America is called Air Force One, and presidents ride in an airplane. Do you think that's faster than a buggy and a horse? I think so too. All right. Another thing that presidents used to do is they would write with a feather. Is that kind of weird? They would take a feather, and there's a little tiny point. I don't know if you can see it very good. Right there on that feather. And then this is a pot of ink. And instead of we have pens now. Inside of a pen, can you see inside of that pen? There's a point, just like on a feather, and then there's ink inside of it. Have you ever had a pen break and you get gooey ink all over your hands? Well, back in the days when the first presidents were around, they would dip their pen, this feather, the point of it, right inside that ink, and then they would write. Do you know how presidents write now? What do you think? They use a computer. Do you use a computer? You know what? You can use pens, but I don't think anybody really uses feathers anymore. Now we use pens and we use computers. Oh, guess what else they did that was different a long time ago? They dressed differently. They wore shoes with buckles on them. They had shirts with ruffles around their neck and around their sleeves. And sometimes they even wore a wig, and they would powder it to make it look fancy. Now, there are still, sometimes people still dress, at least with the wig, and dress up really nice. Guess what the president does now? They wear a suit and a tie. Does your dad ever wear a suit and a tie to dress up to go places? That's what presidents do now. This is something we see all the time. Do we see this very much? Nope. But we see a suit and a tie all the time. Now, it's kind of cool to have presidents who do all those fun things. But do you know what? We have ways to say thank you to the presidents who came a long time ago. What do presidents do? They help make rules to keep us safe, right? They help us know how to do things to keep us being able to be free and being able to do the things we want to do every day. So there's some things we can do to say thank you. And when we have President's Day to help us remember, we remember 2 presidents on President's Day. We remember, let me see if I can find their pictures. We have 2 presidents that we remember. This is the 16th president. His name was Abraham Lincoln. And Abraham Lincoln wanted everybody to be the same. He wanted everyone to be equal. And you know what? When he was the president, there was a big war that was fought to help keep people so that everybody could be safe and be the same. And you know what else? George Washington. I'm going to show you an interesting picture of George Washington. There's George Washington, see, with that wig on. Oh, here's another picture of him right here. Does that look like the same person? Did you know that there's lots and lots of pictures of George Washington because they're on a dollar bill? George Washington was the first president. And George Washington led an army of soldiers to be able to say our country wants to be our country, and where we live, we want to be free. Now, this right here is a picture of George Washington. It's on a $1 bill, and lots of people have $1 bills. And that's to say thank you for all that he did to help us be able to be a free country. Now, there's lots of other places you can find George Washington. There is a special mountain. It's called Mount Rushmore, and it's in South Dakota in America. And there's George Washington. And there's Abraham Lincoln, and there are some other presidents right there that really helped us. You know what? They are so big. Let me show you. Here's another picture of Mount Rushmore. But look right here. Can you see that little guy right there? He's making that face. That is how little he is, and that's how big. This is a whole mountain with these big faces on it, and there's a little tiny guy just making his nose. So if we were looking at this big mountain and there was somebody on the nose, there would be a little tiny ant on there. Is that crazy? That's totally crazy because it's so huge. All right, you know what we're going to do? We are going to make Abraham Lincoln. Now, he looks a little bit different like this, but we're going to draw him. And it's not going to look exactly like this Abraham Lincoln, but we're going to have some fun drawing him. Now, this picture right here on a penny is Abraham Lincoln. Do you have a penny you can look at? Can you see? Now, let's look at that penny really carefully. Just like this picture right here, he has black hair. He's got a beard. All across his chin, it was black because he grew a black beard. He didn't grow a mustache. He just grew a beard. So on our penny, can you see? Right on his little chin, there's some beard on there. All right. And guess where else Abraham Lincoln is that you can see him all the time? On a penny and on a $5 bill. Look at this one. Can you see right on his chin? He has a black beard and he has black hair. That's another picture of him right on a $5 bill. So if you're spending any money, if you're spending dollar bills, you've got George Washington. If you're spending $5 bills, you have Abraham Lincoln. And guess what else? If you are spending a quarter, look on the quarter. Can you see that? There's George Washington on the quarter and Abraham Lincoln on a penny. All right, let's see if we can make one, shall we? The first thing we've got to do is get our white paper. And you know what? This is a huge white paper. I'm going to cut it in half. If you don't want to cut it in half, you can just fold it. You can fold it like this. Fold it in half because we don't need to make it huge. If you want to make it huge, you can. And then I'm just going to take it and I'm going to cut it in half. Okay. Now it takes a few minutes to cut a paper in half, doesn't it? So cut your paper in half. And when you get him cut in half, we're going to draw him. I'm going to put mine right here on this board so that you can see him. Okay, there's my paper. And the first thing we've got to do is get a marker or a pencil. I think I'm going to choose a marker. I'm going to choose an orange one because my face isn't orange, but it's kind of orangey. And orange marker is the closest. A yellow might work too, or you could maybe use a gray or a brown one, whatever you want, but I'm going to use an orange one. And the first thing I'm going to do is draw a circle. Can you draw a circle on there? Because that's going to be his face. Now, I might have done my circle too little. Oh, yep. I'm going to use this for his nose. So I better get a red marker for his mouth. You know what? First of all, I'm going to glue his nose on because then I know where to put everything. So I'm going to get my glue out. And right in the middle of my circle, I'm going to do some glue. And you know what? If your circle is not quite big enough, that's why we have two papers. And you know what? That looks kind of big for a nose. So you know what? Guess what I'm going to do? I'm just going to turn it over. I'm going to turn my paper over and I'm going to make my circle a little bit bigger. Let's see if that works better. I'm going to put some glue right in the middle and then I'm going to put my penny right on there. Now I can see what Abraham Lincoln's supposed to look like. Oh, I think that works a little better. So if yours was too little, you can turn it over to the other side. If it was the right size, then you didn't need to turn it over. All right. I'm going to put my orange marker away for a minute because I want him to have a red mouth. What kind of a mouth do you want yours to have? Do you want a red one too? And he's happy, so I'm going to give him a smile. And I think I'm going to give him some blue eyes. You can do green eyes or brown eyes, whatever kind of eyes you want. Oh, look. There he is. He's got eyes and a nose with his picture on and a mouth. All right. Now, there's something in this picture. He's got a hat on his head. Can you see that hat? Now, that hat is kind of special. Remember how we talked about long ago they used a pen and a quill? Well, in Abraham Lincoln's time, he used a pen and a quill as well. But guess what else he did? He also had to have a place to carry his special papers because he was going lots of places. And remember long ago, how did they go places? They rode in a carriage, and sometimes it was just faster to walk. So you know what he did? His hat became a very, very important thing. Let me show you this picture right here of Abraham Lincoln. He wore a tall hat. That's what people did. They wore a really, really nice tall hat. And you know what he did with his papers? He would roll up his papers and put them inside of his hat. Then he put his hat on his head, and when he went walking, if it was raining, they stayed nice and dry inside of his hat. Then he didn't have to carry them in his hands and drop them. They were up in his hat. A lot of times today, we see people carrying like a little briefcase. It looks like a little tiny suitcase. But he didn't need to because he put them up inside of his hat. That'd be kind of cool to just put it on your head and you would be done. So we better draw him a hat. He's going to need a hat. And it was black, so let's draw him a black hat. Now let's look at that hat. Look at it carefully. It has the part that goes around his head, and then it's really tall. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to draw right across here is the part that goes around his head. And then we're going to make it tall. We're going to go up like this, and I'm going to color it right in with my marker. Now, if you're using a crayon, will that still work? Yeah. There's his hat. All right. Now, do you remember what was on his chin? Let's draw some whiskers on his chin. He's got some whiskers on his chin. And you know what? We could draw him a little bit of hair too if we wanted to. Try to draw him a little bit of hair. And then Abraham Lincoln wore a tall coat. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to draw him a coat. His coat was so long, it came down around his knees. And I'm going to draw right here. The coat came open. And then I'm going to color it black because it was a black coat. And it came down around his knees. So it was a super, super long coat. And then he had black pants. So I'm going to color his pants black too. You know what? I'm going to color this a little bit more. Sometimes it takes a long time to... No, what's he missing? Oh, some arms. We better draw him some arms. Now, I'm not very good at drawing hands. So you can draw hands if you want to, or you don't have to, but I'm just going to draw some fingers on here. So he's got his hands and his arms. Oh, and you know what? He might need some shoes. He wore boots, so we're just going to draw some boots on there. Kind of like just some ovals. Those are going to be his shoes. There's our Abraham Lincoln. Here's my friend's Abraham Lincoln. Do they look about the same? No, they're kind of different, aren't they? But we can tell they're both Abraham Lincoln. Do they have to look exactly the same? Nope. Now, for President's Day, you're going to have a decoration. And you can take him, put him right on your blue paper. Now, if you want to, like my friend did, my friend cut out the edges. You can put him right on here and glue him on, or you can cut him out first. You can do it either way. This way will work just fine. And I'm going to take my glue, and I'm going to put, oh, there's my head that was too small. And I'm going to put some glue right in these corners, okay? Right in these corners. And you can do that too when you're all finished. And we're going to turn him over and stick him on. Okay, I'm sticking him on the corners. There he is. Now I have Abraham Lincoln, so I can put him up and look at him. And I can do my friends too. They both look good. While you're doing it, you know what? I'm going to read you a story about Abraham Lincoln and what Abraham Lincoln did. When he was young, he had to work so hard to do so many things. So we're going to read about what he did. Now, this is a book by Andrew Woods, and the pictures were drawn by Pat Scories. And we're going to read about young Abraham Lincoln. So you can finish working on your picture while I am reading you the story. So don't get worried about it. Just work on it, okay? Abraham Lincoln was the 16th president of the United States. Lincoln did not start his life being rich or powerful. He was born in a log cabin in Kentucky on February 12th, 1809. There's what it looks like. Just a cabin, and it only had one room in it. The kitchen and the living room and the bedroom were all the same room. Abe had an older sister named Sarah. Abe and Sarah and their parents had a farm in the woods. Can you see all those trees? They lived in the woods. Life in the wilderness was hard. There were many, many chores to do. Abe fetched water from the creek. He chopped firewood, and he helped his father plant seeds. Can you see him helping his dad? They had to chop down. See that whole fence? They had to chop down all the wood for the fence. And they had to do, there's the creek. He had to go get water because they didn't have a tap in their kitchen. They had to carry the water. Several miles from the Lincoln home was a one-room schoolhouse. There's the school where he went to. Abe was very smart and he loved school. But there was so much work to do on the farm that Abe and Sarah went to school for less than a year. They couldn't even go the whole school year because there was so much work they needed to do. Abe kept learning even though he couldn't go to school. He studied by the light of the fire. He didn't even have lights in his house, so he used the fire to help him study. When Abe was 7 years old, his family got in a wagon and moved to Indiana. It was winter when the Lincolns arrived. Young Abe helped his father chop down trees and build a snug house. Abe was only 9 when his mom got really sick and she died. The cabin was so lonesome without his mom. You think that would be really lonesome to not have your mom there? A year later, Abe's father got married again. Abe's stepmother was named Sarah Johnson, so now there was 2 Sarahs in their family. She had 3 children of her own. Soon the log cabin was a cheerful place again. She was a fun mom. Now Abe liked to joke with his stepmother. One day he brought a small boy in the house with muddy feet in the cabin and had him walk up the wall and across the ceiling. Oh no, do you think you and Mom would like that? When Mrs. Lincoln saw the footprint, she laughed and wondered how it could happen. Did he play a good trick? As he grew up, Abe never lost his love of learning. He read whenever he could. He even read while he was plowing in the fields. Can you see him reading right there? Books were hard to get in the wilderness. Sometimes Abraham Lincoln would walk miles just to borrow a book. Once Abe borrowed a book and got it wet. He worked for 3 days to pay for the book. That was really good to give it back nicely so it wasn't ruined because books are so special. Abe grew up to be tall and strong. He could chop wood faster than anyone. He earned money by splitting wood for fences. Abe was also a great storyteller. People loved to sit and listen to his funny stories. When Abe grew up, he tried many different jobs. He worked as a farmer, a carpenter. He worked on the riverboat and sawmill too. Then Abe opened a store. One day, a man came with an old barrel to sell. He didn't know it, but that barrel was going to change his life. How could a barrel change your life? Abe bought the barrel. In it, he found a book about law. Abe read every chance he could. Now Abe knew what he wanted to do. He would become a lawyer to help people. He was a really good helper, wasn't he? A lawyer named John T. Stewart helped Abe study. It was hard work, but Abe was determined to learn. Finally, the day came when Abe was ready to practice law. Stewart made Abe his partner. Soon, Abe became very, very successful. But being a lawyer was not enough for Abe. He wanted to help people in other ways, so he held several government offices. In 1861, Abe became the 16th President of the United States. Abraham Lincoln was the president during the Civil War. It was a very sad time for the country, but Lincoln kept the nation together. Then, just as the war ended in 1865, an angry man shot and killed him. Thousands of people cried when they heard that Lincoln was dead. Today, many people still go to Washington, D.C. and see his memorial. There is a statue that's so big that people can look at him. So if you ever go to Washington, D.C., you can see him in the statue, a memorial to remember the kind of good things that he did for people. So what are some things that we can do to help say thank you for the people who helped us have a good country? We can wave the flag. When there's a parade, there's flags in the parade, and we can wave our flag. We can also say the Pledge of Allegiance. And that's an important thing to remember. In the things that we say in our pledge help us remember the important things that we learned. All right here, we can remember the soldiers who helped keep us free and the things that they did to help us. There's some soldiers who are putting a flag up, a picture of them. And we can learn about lots of presidents. We can learn about Abraham Lincoln. That's who we learned about today. And we can learn about George Washington. And we can learn about other presidents that have helped us. There are lots of good presidents and leaders that help us do what we need to do. All right. I hope you had fun drawing this. Now, you know what? We're going to sing a little song. The first part of the song is about Washington, and the next part's about Lincoln. Now let's look. I'm going to grab this other picture of Washington while we sing it so you can see and remember how silly he dressed. Okay. Here he is. When Washington was president a long, long time ago, he dressed so very funny, 'twould make you laugh, ho, ho. His hair was white and tied with bows, and he had buckles on his toes. His pants came down around his knees, his hat three-cornered, if you please. When Lincoln was the president a long, long time ago, he dressed so very funny, 'twould make you laugh, ho, ho. His whiskers were as black as night and covered up his chin all right. His coat came down around his knees, his hat a stovepipe, if you please. I hope you had fun making your Lincoln today. I know yours is probably going to look different than mine, and it's probably going to look even different than my friends. But it's still a cool picture because you made it, and you are awesome. I love being with you. I hope you had fun today. See you later, alligator. In a while, crocodile. You're awesome, possum. See you soon.